When you're looking on the tube and you want that fire, follow TV every time, fire, 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 every time, fire. When you're looking on the tube and you want that fire, follow TV every time, fire. When you're looking on the tube and you want that fire, follow TV every time,
I was looking on my phone, trying to get up in my zone. So I typed in Baba TV, then I pressed my thumb and scroll. Searching through the channel, knowledge on the mantle. Loving all the programs, plus a sign at a panel. I was dropping all these jewels, man, just trying to get my people right. I was reading all these books in my mind, I was just thinking like, I got it. If we come together, work together, help each other, maybe we can be free.
when you're looking on the tube and you want that fire, follow TV every time, fire. When you're looking on the tube and you want that fire, follow TV every time, fire, 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 every time.
The word Scottish comes from an Egyptian queen named Scota. S-C-O-T-A. S-C-O-T-A. Scota. Who married this Irish prince. Allegedly, this Irish prince was traveling somehow or the other with an entourage of Navy, and came and he engaged in a war to help the Pharaoh against some enemy. So the Pharaoh gave this Irish prince his daughter's hand in marriage. Anyway, so she and her whole entourage left the Nile Valley to go up there, and live with him. When they got there, they got involved. He was involved in a war, in a battle. And in the battle, she got killed. And instead of her entourage going back home, her entourage settled up there in the land in the north part of, the island, of England. And the land has been known as Scotland ever since. Scotland is named after Scota. All right.
And what you say, the brothers in the Freemasonry, the Prince Hall, they ask you, they can't understand how you know so much about the Masons.
Right, about the Masons.
And there are a lot of our people who will say, well, that's something sinister you involved in, Brother Tehuti. But you saying that's our stuff. You're not practicing it the way the white folks.
It's like, Prince Hall Freemasonry is not what Eurocentric Freemasonry is. For all practical purposes, all right? Prince Hall Freemasonry is a black Christian order. It's Christian. They say Jesus more. They say Jesus more in the temples than they do on Sundays in some churches.
Right.
They're not about all the stuff that people who don't know say about Masonry. Like a Mason won't even tell you in depth what his stuff is about if you're not a Mason. He's not allowed to. He takes an oath not to reveal the secrets of the order. All right, it's such, right? But there's nothing in the secrets of the order that's so sinister that is that sinister, right?
Right.
I'm not going to give you the secret password to go in the lodge. I'm not going to show you the right hand shake or do none of that kind of stuff. That's what the secrets are about. The rest of what Masonry is about, you can go on Google, and everything else about Masonry, you can just Google it, and it'll come right up.
So you said we always had ancient mystery systems.
Well, the original mystery system was ours. The original mystery system, what they call the ancient mystery, was that taught in the Nile Valley. Another thing that people don't know, this is another one of the things I got from Doc Ben. At the Grand Lodge of Waset, the temple all the way in Upper Egypt, Upper Kemet, right? When the students would come there, they were taught that there's only one divine truth. Now that you have learned that truth here, your job is to go home and convert that to your language and using symbols that your people will understand. So it appears that there are several different mystery systems that's teaching similar things. Actually, it's only one mystery system, but it was being taught in different cultures using the language and the symbols of those cultures. The best example that I can point people to is the book, The World's 16 Crucified Saviors. Because even though that author, I think his name was Kearse, he didn't come to the correct conclusion, but what he points out is there were 16 different religious systems that all had the same essence. See, it was only one system, but it was expressed in 16 different ways because the people spoke 16 different languages, and they had 16 different cultural systems where this one truth was taught. That's why there were 16 crucified saviors in this book. There's one divine truth, and its expression was seen in 16 different forms. So the Europeans, as they left their little ignorance of their caves of Western Asia up there in Europe, as they went out, like to discover and meet things, they kept thinking they was finding different stuff. In Doc Men's book on Ramses II, he points out the fact that from the Grand Lodge of Waset, there were 18 subordinate lodges around the Mediterranean basin all the way over to Western India. So a lot of those temples were temples, like, for example, Pythagoras, the one that when Pythagoras went back to Greece and went out on the island and set up his school, Pythagoras was teaching in Greek what he had learned in the Kemetic language in the Nile Valley. He wasn't teaching anything that he invented. Pythagoras didn't invent the what they call the Pythagorean theorem. I mean, you can go yourself and get a copy or look up what's called the Rind, R-H-I-N-D. It's named after the white boy, German, who said he found it. But the Rind Papyrus, all right? Or look at the one that's called the Moscow Papyrus, all right? And you will find the mathematical formulas for constructing a right triangle that were written in 1800 BC, or 1300 years before Pythagoras was born. And you can see it yourself and look at the dating as such. But again, one of the things that white supremacy does is once it claims something, it won't relent and tell the truth. So white supremacy says Pythagoras invented the formula that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And that's how it's been taught ever since. That's white folks lying about who created the formula. See, as such. But again, there was one temple. It's just like the word Christ, C-H-R-I-S-T. It evolved from the Latin word Christus, the Greek word Christos, and the Greeks got it from the ancient Kemetic word K-R-S-T. Don't listen to Gerald Massey. He miswrote it when he came up with Karast. As such, he put some A's. He did the thing of saying it has to have vowels in it so that he could pronounce it. But if you look at it, the vowel is self-evident, and you can pronounce K-R-S-T just like it is. See? And the first white boy to attach that to his name was Ptolemy the First, who also called himself Soter, S-O-T-E-R, Soter. And Soter means Savior. And for all black ministers who go to a college, a theological seminary, they take a class called soteriology. S-O-T-E-R-I-L-O-G-Y, soteriology. And soteriology, which comes from the word soter, which is again the name Ptolemy gives himself in Egypt, is the doctrine of the Christian church. Got nothing to do with no Greek hippie killed on the Roman symbol of death. It wasn't no Jewish hippie killed on the cross that was doing this. All this stuff goes back to when the Greeks came into Egypt and began to take our symbols and stuff and assign it to themselves, like in one form or the other. So Soter the first, who's also erected by his son as Serapis, the statue of Serapis, which is Osiris, the Apis bull, meaning he was Osiris, the bull of Egypt. That's the spiritual name that Ptolemy the first attaches to himself. So Serapis is not just a god made up of Egyptian and Greek thought. Serapis was the spiritual name that Ptolemy the first assigned to himself. And the religion that was developed around it, was essentially when Hadrian, the king or the Roman emperor, traveled in Egypt, he wrote a letter back to his buddy and said the folks who worship Serapis call themselves bishops of Christ. All right? Mm-hmm. Bishops of Christ. They call themselves Christians. So the term Christians didn't always relate again to the mythology or the legend or the constructed story, of Yeshua ben Pandera, or Yeshua, whichever name they want to attach to him, right? Trying to find a Jewish rebel who was a thorn in the side to the Romans at one time, and they wanted to select him to be the symbol for this new religion. The religion and the tenets of the religion is older than the story, the guy from, Jerusalem or from Bethlehem. I like the brother, I don't like messing with people's mind, but the way it gets through sometimes if you really mock the symbolism, it'll make people stop and listen and do some research. So again, so Ptolemy the first, who was also one of Aristotle's students, who was Alexander the Greek's best friend, who when Alexander died, if you looked at that movie starring what's that white boy, I can't think of his name, the star, but the one who played Alexander the Great.
I forget that cracker name.
Yeah, but anyway, you watch this movie, his name was something Farrell, right? Colin Farrell, I believe. Anyway, when he dies, these 5 generals who his 5 top generals met in a conference and decided to cut up Alexander's empire so that each one of them would become king of one section of the empire. One of them, his name was Ptolemy, son of Lagus. He's the one that took Kemet, went back there. He took Alexander's dead body with him and buried the body in Alexandria so that he would have claim over the Egyptian empire, right? But anyway, he's the one that once he put himself on the throne of Egypt, like all the other kings of Egypt from antiquity forward, he had to have 5 names, not just the name assigned to him at birth. See, Ptolemy, son of Lagus, is his Greek name. Ptolemy the first Soter was his throne name. All right. Serapis, Osiris, the Apis bull of Egypt, was one of his, creative names. And all of that, when you add them up together, you look at these different names. And when he died and his son Ptolemy Philadelphus came to the throne, he made the worship of his father a religion. He's the one that built the Serapeum, or the Serapis Museum, but the Serapeum where the worship of Ptolemy took place, as such. So by the time 300 years later, folks don't realize what Constantine and these bishops are doing out there on that island of Nicaea as they're constructing this religion of Christianity. In fact, the reason they had the conference in the first place was because of what I call the last real strong brother of the ancient world. This brother's name is Arius, A-R-I-U-S. Arius objected to what they was doing. And so in Catholicism, they call Arius what he was telling them, they call it the Arian heresy. But what Arius was telling these folks is that, listen, in Egypt, in my country, the Christ was a symbol, you know, an idea, and you all are trying to make it a man. See, so he lays it out. See, so they locked Arius up. Now he got banished. You know, hey, no, he can't have him running around telling, you know, talking about what it used to be. See, so now the new interpretation of the Christ is, well, yeah, he was born. We the Romans, we killed him, and the rest of y'all wait for him to come back to save y'all. So here we are, some 2,000 years later, and you got all of these believers waiting on a mythology that originally was a concept or an idea, this thing of Christ, you know, like as an idea, thinking that it was the last name of a man, and this was the actual son of the one divine, or what they call God. He came to earth as a Jewish baby, and he's going to save everybody in the world who believe that. Let's go ahead and get him.